Welcome back to the Simplifiers podcast, where we take topics in business and in life and simplify them. And friends, I want to talk about kindness today. Like, actually take a moment, jump off our hamster wheels of busyness in our lives and slow down and actually talk about a core value like kindness and how kindness can sometimes get overlooked in life and in business. Let's just be real. But it is such a tenet to living a more whole, joy-filled life. So how do we create a life full of kindness? That's what we're going to simplify today. My special guest is Dr. Eva Ritvo. She's a psychiatrist with almost 30 years experience practicing in Miami Beach. She's also the author of Be Kinder, The Transformative Power of Kindness, and the founder of the Be Kinder Global Initiative, which is a movement that helps bring more kindness all around the world. She is also the co-founder of the Bold Beauty Project, which is a nonprofit that pairs women with disabilities with award-winning photographers to help them create art exhibitions to raise awareness. So I'd like to welcome to the Simplifiers podcast, Dr. Eva Ritvo. Hey, Dr. Eva.
Hi, Mary. It's so nice to see you again.
It's lovely to see you and chat with you as well. And yeah, I mean, isn't it true that we think of kindness as a soft skill? I'm using air quotes here. But in fact, it is such a paramount part of living a whole and juicy and joy-filled life. Like, why do you think people skip over kindness as like it's no big deal?
Well, I think, unfortunately, it just hasn't gotten the proper amount of attention. And there's so many things that are competing for our attention that do grab our attention and hold it that are more powerful. For example, fear. And lately, we've had a lot of our attention focused on fear of for our own safety with the COVID crisis, fear of the future of our democracy. No matter which side you're on, people have been fearful. And evolutionarily speaking, we're always going to be drawn to that because we have to, because that, threatens our very survival. So that's why I think it's really important to actively try to focus on kindness, because it's something that we also can't live without, but that we need to cultivate more of it in our society, because we're really being brought down a very different and very harsh road with all this media that we're subjected to 24/7 nowadays.
No joke. And I mean, I think that that's why so many people tune into this podcast in particular, because it's like, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed by the noise in the world that I want to simplify down. I want to figure out how to prioritize the things in my life and what gets my attention. And I believe in the power of kindness, but you actually did some research on the science of kindness. So talk us through that. Like, what were the things you learned, the benefits of when we focus our lives towards more kindness?
Well, I think what really struck me is how biologically important kindness is. And when we are kind to somebody else, it's not just that person that's benefiting. We are benefiting because humans are designed to live in small groups, probably around 100 or 150 people. And we are designed to nurture and care for one another. And so kindness sets up a win-win situation. And unfortunately, capitalism can often set up a win-lose situation. So I think shifting back to a win-win is vitally important for all of our health. So what happens when you're kind is that the receiving person obviously feels good. We know that. But the wonderful thing is the person giving the kindness also feels very good. And both of them are receiving the health benefits of that. So we call that helper's high or giver's gain. But anybody who's spent a day volunteering knows that you come home elated. It's not just the recipient. And that's why I think we need, as a society, to focus more on kindness. COVID-19, I think, has presented us an interesting opportunity, because what are the masks about? The masks are about being kind. They're about being kind to yourself, protecting yourself when you go out there, and being kind to others and not spreading a disease inadvertently. So the interesting thing is we have this opportunity now to do something kind every time we go out. And you can see that it's been difficult for some people to adopt that. And there's been confusion and misunderstanding. So in terms of simplifying, first of all, I think you're doing this at the most brilliant moment, right? We're in a pandemic. Almost everyone's life has gotten simpler. And truly, kindness has never been simpler because it's as simple as taking a mask, putting it on your face, keeping it above your nose, making
Mm-hmm.
sure that it's fitting properly because you've got to protect yourself too, and rewiring your brain to see that kindness creates win-win.
Yeah.
And then we all do better when we go out into the world with that attitude.
Yeah, no matter where you are in the US, the UK, or beyond, the whole concept of masks has become so highly politicized. And by the way, I am pro mask. Let me just put that out there as well. Uh, I just find that it's so interesting when I talk to my friends who are very anti mask. They feel like this is a thing that is revoking their rights, that you are forcing me to do something, and I don't like that. And the government is causing a lot of control and da 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 da. What would you say to that person with a lens of kindness and empathy and compassion?
Well, I think you just hit the nail on the head. You have to be kind and compassionate when people agree with you and when they disagree with you.
Right.
So that's a very important example when somebody disagrees. And it can be very hard to be kind and compassionate when somebody disagrees. So you can see that as an opportunity for personal growth. Right?
Mm,
And when we're talking with somebody and we don't agree, we can either get reactive, which is easy to do, and get angry and put them down.
yeah.
Or you could say, okay, well, here's a time where I need to grow, and you need to think about why does this person view this intervention that way? I'm a doctor. I'm very comfortable wearing a mask. I have no problem with it. It makes total sense to me. I've been doing it for years.
Right.
But what has gone on in somebody else's personal life or in their history that's making them see that a different way? And
Mm,
so having a conversation, not the surface, which I feel like it takes away my freedom, but to understand in a more deep fashion, well, why does that person feel like a freedom has been taken away from them? What I find in psychotherapy is we have to uncover a lot of layers, but oftentimes there's a trauma under there.
mm,
And that trauma has made them feel this way. And then subsequently it manifests, as I don't want to wear a mask, as a rebellious
right.
act. But I think it's unfortunate that the mask was made a political tool because it is not. And I remember writing at the very beginning of this, there's nothing political about a little piece of paper with string going behind your ear. This is
Right.
a medical device that has been around for hundreds of years. And if we had have adopted them at the beginning of the pandemic about a year ago, the whole course of this would have unfolded in a very different way. And the
Mm,
tragedy is it's almost 500,000 lives. And so when you think about freedom, yes, freedom is extremely important. And that's why we live in the United States and we make choices. But for me, the mask has allowed me to feel free because I go out of the house. I
right.
interact with other
Right.
people because I feel free to do that. At the beginning of the pandemic, when we didn't have that tool, I didn't leave my house.
Right.
So I felt very unfree then. So
Oh,
I think it's important to look at issues in their complexity, in their entirety, and to understand that really it was just made into a political situation when there was no need for that. And now we're in 2021. Thank goodness we don't have any elections coming up for 2 years. And we need to put politics aside and we have to go back to, like you said, simplify.
mm.
And it's simply a piece of paper that's going in front of your face that's preventing things coming out of your mouth from impacting another person. To me, you can't get simpler than that.
Yeah,
And
there's nothing more to it. That
there's
and that
nothing
like
more.
that's what's interesting, Eva, is that I mean I picked up a couple of things that you said there that I really want to highlight. One is when people feel like their freedom is being at risk or being taken away. That's where it's almost like the reactionary fight and flight right response,
Sure.
right? It's the fight response of like, oh yeah, Bengal tiger, I'm gonna fight you. Like, come on, let's go. And it's that kind of immediate kind of base level response that is potentially going. And then also you said there that it could potentially be trauma from their past where someone somewhere, whether it was a parent or an ex-spouse or partner or friend or whoever, crossed the line or took freedom away from them. Did I hear that right?
Absolutely, right? Because trauma repeats itself and we layer things
Right.
on top of it. I think in this case, it was a leadership issue. And when the leadership says you don't have to wear that, I think, we follow leaders. That's what we do.
Right.
So I think that that's where we really got off course with this. And then it became something that is really not. It's really to give you freedoms. And that's the unfortunate misunderstanding is you're so much freer with a mask.
Mm.
And that's why, it's important now to remove the political, to remove the other layering and see it for what it is.
Yeah.
And yes, we should fight for freedom when our freedoms are being taken away, but a mask is actually giving you freedom.
Yeah.
And it's giving you an opportunity to be kind to yourself as well as others simultaneously, which is why I'm such a big proponent of it. I certainly understand the hardships associated with it. I have a daughter with a disability, so for her to walk in a mask is very difficult. So for her, it does limit her freedom, and it's harder for her to go out, and it's harder to walk farther. So, we can't say one size fits all. Everybody has a different experience during their life. But this has been a unique time in our history where we've had to really think about public health.
Yeah.
It's not just about our health, it's about public health. So, for example, I got the vaccine, my daughter got the vaccine. We both got, ill. Who wants to be in that position?
Right.
But on the other hand, we're trying to move society from where we are to out of a pandemic. And the way to do that is to immunize people. So we're all going to just have to, toughen up a little bit and be sick for, 24 hours or 72 hours or whatever it is. And then ultimately, that's how we get our freedom back.
Right. And, the reason why we're speaking so much and spending so much time on masks in particular is honestly because this is such a sticking point that I think globally a lot of people can resonate with. You sit on one side of that spectrum, and sometimes you might flip. You might not be all 100% mask all the time, and you might not be 100% all wearing a mask all the time and doing all the things. But I think what's at the core of this one example, which again isn't just in America, it's certainly in the UK as well, is empathy and compassion, which leads to more kindness, right?
Absolutely. That's the basis of kindness is empathy, because you see somebody in pain and then you decide to be kind to them.
Yeah.
So without empathy, there is no kindness. And we see this in people on the, with the autism spectrum disorder. They're not unkind, but they lack that ability to empathize and to relate and connect. The more connected you are, the easier it is to be kind because you know how to help somebody. And that's one of the problems that we're having right now also with the internet, which is we can interact with 7.7 billion people almost simultaneously, but the problem is we don't know them.
Yeah.
And we don't understand them. And therefore, what might be kind to you, Mary, might be extremely unkind to somebody else. So, for example, I just called you your first name, which we've agreed to in advance.
Yeah.
So hopefully it feels kind. But what if we were in a different culture and it's just outrageous that somebody I've only met twice, I'm calling by a first name? I come across as very unkind. So that's why, as a society as a whole, the whole planet right now is having trouble with kindness, because on one hand, we're trying to embrace a lot of people, but on the other hand, we don't know them, we don't understand them, we can't empathize, and it's so hard to know how to be kind. That's why I wrote this book, and I just gave it a really simple title, which is Be Kinder, because there is no prescription of how to do it, because it's different in each situation. And prior to this book coming out, we weren't in a pandemic, so there's nothing in these 200 pages about a mask because it wasn't on my radar. But now we're in a pandemic, and the ways to be kind in some ways have diminished. Right? Because many of us were used to going out and volunteering and doing so many things. Well, we can't do that anymore because that would be unkind to ourselves and it would be unkind to other people because we could be transmitting a disease. So kindness is on one hand very simple, but on the other hand, it's become really complex lately and we don't know how to do it. I know for myself, I feel really handicapped in this pandemic to be able to use that kindness muscle. I'm not interacting with as many people. I don't know how to help. So it's been a very difficult time for everybody on one level or another.
Yeah. Well, and what I took away from your book in particular is, it seems like kindness really has to begin with yourself first, right? right? Is that the first place to start? How do we do that? How do we be more kind to ourselves? Because I don't know about you, but sometimes my inner critic is very loud, very loud and very harsh.
Well, I'm glad that you took that away from the book, because this book has 64 examples, and they're really kind acts of strangers. And that was because the book was inspired by kindness that I received when I was going through a difficult time of my life. So when we hit this pandemic, I did a flip in my head. I said, oh my God, we've got to be kind to ourselves, because the stress was just literally eating me alive at the beginning of this, just overwhelming. So I said, well, I better, figure out how to be kind to myself. So as a psychiatrist, I always think of a wellness pyramid, and sleep is at the bottom of that, because if we don't sleep well, nothing else goes well. So I think the best place to start to be kind to yourself is get a good night's sleep.
Yes.
Don't sacrifice your sleep for anyone or anything if you can avoid it. I went to medical school. There was no avoiding insomnia or sleeplessness back then. That was just the way it was. But now, if we can get sleep, let ourselves get sleep. And so what I started doing at the beginning of the pandemic is forget 8 hours. I'm getting whatever I want.
Yeah.
And I stopped setting an alarm in the morning, and I woke up when I woke up.
Yeah.
And by the way, that was 9 hours. So I found out my natural body is closer to 9, not the 8 that, they tell us that we need. Every body is different.
Yeah.
And so I gave myself more sleep. And then you have to attend to the quality of sleep. I sleep with a gravity blanket, which I love. I sleep with the head of my bed elevated, and I actually sleep with a sleep machine because I have sleep apnea. So my sleep was really an issue. And for many of my patients, sleep is really an issue. And I tell them it is unacceptable to be up in the middle of the night wandering around. It's unacceptable to suffer with difficulty falling asleep. So for any of your listeners, if you want to simplify your life, reach out to your doctor and figure out how to get better sleep. Don't be ashamed, and don't minimize it, because if you don't have good sleep, nothing else is going to fall in place. I personally have my own sleep doctor, sleep specialist. He's wonderful. I check in with him every 3 months. So that's my greatest advice is don't skimp on your sleep.
I 100% agree. Yeah.
Get that fixed.
You do.
Then the next layer up is nutrition. And at the beginning of the pandemic, when I and many people were too frightened to go to the market, I thought, well, I'm not going to have some young person risking their life to bring me cookies. If I'm sending them to the market, risking their life because I'm not willing to go myself, then I better have really nutritious food. And so for me, that was an easy shift. And I just did all Instacart and zero junk. Yeah. Everything that went in my Instacart had to be something that was going to nourish me, because some person risked their life for it. And if I get exposed to COVID, I want to make sure that my immune system is where it can be. So that was a good shift for me. And also getting out of restaurants. They overfeed us. They give us bread. They ask us if we want dessert.
Right.
These are lovely things, but they're really not that healthy.
Right.
So
let me pause you right there, because what you just said I think is really important to put a pin in the map on, is that you have shifted your perspective on, if you do online grocery shopping and they get it delivered to your house, to really think about that person, the person who's picking the food, the person who's delivering the food to your home that has to come in contact with you, whether you're healthy or not, still is a risk. And I don't know if many people even think about that. They see it as a transaction rather than an actual human person. So I think it's worth kind of mentioning that's an interesting perspective of how you have said, you know what, actually, if I am going to have somebody deliver the groceries to my house, I am going to make sure it's the best whole food, plants, vegetables, and grains, rather than junk food coming to you. And again, that's that win-win mentality.
That's right. And over tip. Right? Especially at the beginning of the pandemic, when we truly didn't know what their risk was, and many of them did get sick. Yeah. And some of them even died, which is really tragic. So not to take things for granted, that somebody really is going way out of their way to get you groceries.
Yes.
At this point, thanks to masking, I feel safe going to the grocery store, and I go myself. That doesn't mean that I've reverted to junk food, because what I learned during this year of this pandemic is it really does make a difference. And you really have to detox from all that junk,
Yes.
because now what happens is if you go out and you eat it, like your stomach immediately tells you, what are you doing? So I never would have been able to get rid of all those desserts were it not for the pandemic, because was a big dessert person, and I didn't really realize the impact it was having until I just wouldn't do it for the sake of what I told you. And then I realized, yeah, I guess don't need that. So it was a gradual shift, and I think it's important for people to acknowledge that even in this pandemic, there has been some beauty, and beauty has been to eat in a different way,
Yeah.
disconnect from so many of our social obligations, disconnect from relationships that weren't working for us, and really focus on what's important. So for me, being a doctor has always been really important, and I didn't miss a day of work due to shifting to telemedicine. It was horrible at the beginning, but now we're kind of laughing,
Yeah.
like I'm seeing my patients, they're at home, they're in their bathrobe, whatever. They didn't have to commute. So there is always beauty in every situation, and it's about finding it and being empathic to yourself and to everyone around you, because this time we literally are all in this together.
Yeah. Well, and back up to what you said prior to nutrition about sleep. Side note, about a month ago, we did an episode 155, and I'll put the link in the show notes for everyone, with Shay Leonard, who specifically gave us and simplified how to get a better night's sleep. So she is a sleep hygiene expert. And, by the way, any tips and tricks that Dr. Eva mentions on today's episode, you can find that at the simplifierspodcast.com. So that's where all the resources are for you as well. So
You want to know one more sleep trick?
yes,
It's called
please.
somnifix.
What is
And
this?
you tape your mouth shut, because snoring occurs through the mouth. And when we sleep and we relax, we tend to open our mouths,
Huh.
and we're supposed to sleep breathing through our nose. So that is a very weird tip. And when someone first recommended it to me, I thought, oh, please, really? But it actually makes a big difference.
What an
So
interesting
that's an
tip.
odd tip. Also, there's a new book that came out called Breath, by James Nestor, and he talks about how we're supposed to be nose breathers, but we become mouth breathers through our evolution from eating too much soft food and not chewing. And so we've developed a damaged soft palate, and one thing leads to another, which ultimately leads to sleep apnea, which can lead to death if it's untreated. So sleep is really important. Nutrition is really important. Then moving up that hierarchy in terms of kindness to self, exercise.
Yeah.
And that's something that was so tough for people at the beginning of this pandemic, because your normal ways of exercising were taken away by and large. So people had to shift. Now we're a year into it, and Peloton is booming, Mirror is booming, online classes on Zoom. To me, it really speaks to the creativity of human beings, and how exercise is so fundamental. We're not going to give it up just because we can't go to our gyms.
Yep.
We have created all kinds of new ways to exercise. So if people haven't found time to exercise and they're trying to simplify their life, put a daily time, and your body will get used to it and your body will crave it. So at the beginning of the pandemic, 5 o'clock, I was walking no matter what else was happening. I went outside and just took a walk. If I was too scared to go out across the street, I walked on my balcony.
Yeah.
But in terms of simplifying your life, you cannot live a happy, healthy, or kind or fulfilled life without treating your body with kindness. And our bodies are designed to move. They're not designed to sit.
I
I'm sure
agree.
you've heard sitting is the new smoking.
It certainly
Yeah.
is. And two resources that I have found really handy through this last year as well. One is Joe Wicks in England. He has done 5 minute, 10 minute, and 15 minute like PE style classes on YouTube, all free. And they are geared towards kids moving their bodies in fun, easy ways. But, same for adults. 5 minutes, you can move your body for 5 minutes, and then you graduate up to 10, 15, 30 minutes on there. That's one, Joe Wicks. Two is Yoga with Adrien. She's based down in
Oh, yes.
Austin, Texas.
I've been doing her.
And again, these are very simple, anywhere from 10 to 30-minute kind of yoga workouts that are gentle, especially if you are, used to having a sedentary lifestyle or you haven't been in a gym in over 12 months because of the pandemic. It's a nice way to ease into movement because I can imagine that a lot of people who are not sleeping very well, who are eating, frozen meals that are super processed and full of chemicals and are not exercising at all. It's all just so overwhelming. Like, where in the world could I possibly start first? And I think sometimes you just need to find those solutions that are easy to slip in and integrate into your patterns, and then, up level and up level and up level, right?
Yeah, well, I think your word for your show is really transformative. That's why I picked Be Kinder, because I just wanted one simple word that people could stick in their brain. I like simplify.
Yeah.
So, humans are designed to walk.
Yeah.
So if we want to simplify, Mary, why don't we just put on tennis shoes and go for a walk? And I guess
Yes.
they're not
Yeah.
even called tennis shoes anymore. They're just called whatever they're called, sneakers or something.
Yeah.
But just put those shoes on, a comfortable shoe that supports your foot, and go for a walk, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. If it's cold where you are, don't go for too long and make sure you bundle up. Or as I said, walk around your house. Remember that beautiful guy in England who raised all that money by walking on his balcony?
Yes.
That's pretty simple. So I think if people are trying to make, behavioral changes, simplify is a fabulous word. Just start with walking. Try to think about nourishing yourself every time you eat. Every time you eat, it's an opportunity to stay well. So make your choices wisely. I got a bunch of those little oranges. I just throw them in there. So every time I get hungry, I just, grab an orange, grab some nuts, something like that.
Yeah.
Drink a lot of water. And just try to live a healthier life, because COVID has really shown us in a very dramatic fashion that only health matters.
Mm-hmm.
We were willing to stop almost everything, right? Yeah. Think about those first couple months when people said you could die. You stopped everything. And that's a wake-up call that nothing matters more than health. And
Yes.
the only way to maintain our health is to do what's natural. And what's natural is to move, to walk, to sleep, to eat foods that you would find in nature, plants, berries, nuts, etc. And you're going to be able to stay alive for a lot longer and have a better time while you're doing it.
Yeah.
Again, COVID has revealed, obesity, diabetes, these do not fare well when you get assaulted with a virus. So you want to try to protect yourself. You're the only one who can do it. I can't do anything about your health.
Yeah.
I can give you tips or suggestions, but at the end of the day, as adults, our health is our responsibility.
Yeah.
So I do hope that COVID's been a wake-up call for society that we must be kind to ourselves. We must take care of ourselves, because truly only health matters.
And what you said earlier, when it comes to sleep and nutrition and exercise, it makes me think of a book by James Clear, Atomic Habits. It comes into play when you stack good habits onto each other. It's the compound effect of that. I mean, I know that's true for me. So when I take an online yoga class and I stick with it, I'm now up to 4, maybe 5 times a week where I'm doing yoga, every single week, which is great because for me, and I only just started this habit about 3 months ago myself, and that has sparked me to be like, oh, I feel stronger now. My body feels stronger. I feel like my immune system's boosted. And so that habit stacks on another one of like, well, because I feel stronger, I want to cook really good food and feed myself food that, lights me up. So I get into roasting vegetables rather than popping a frozen meal into the microwave. That stacks onto the other. And then it's like, oh, well, I want to, get enough sleep so that I can hit that 8:30 in the morning goal of doing that class in the morning every single morning. Again, so stacking one on top of each other, it's where the momentum is found in order to make change, right?
Absolutely. No question about that. And the pandemic has hit a reset for us. So it's an opportunity to figure these things out anew for yourself. And then we have to make sure as we emerge from this pandemic that we don't lose these good habits that we've established, that we continue to build upon that. One thing about exercise is it's really fun to do it in groups, because we have a part of our brain called mirror neurons, and our mirror neurons mirror what we see other people doing. And that's why it's so much easier to work out in a group when you watch that instructor, because then it's not just the verbal instruction, but your brain brain is seeing what they're doing. So I personally am really excited to get back to do the yoga in the class, and to have everybody get back to CrossFit and Orange Theory and all these wonderful things that have been invented over the last years.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, do the best you can. And it's great that you've really committed to the yoga. You did get a lot of time back in your life when you're not commuting places, so you're using it wisely.
Yeah.
Where better to invest your time than in yourself?
Absolutely. So, can you think about some ideas that you could share of how we could be kind to others? Now, we've talked about how to be kind to ourselves and start that process, and really, it's never done, right? It's a lifelong journey. But Gabe, you got some ideas for us on how we can be kind to others, whether it's our clients or our neighbors or even our coworkers working remotely?
Well, it goes back to that empathy, and it goes back to giving yourself time and opportunity to connect to somebody and to see what it is they need. And everybody's pretty needy right now, right? Everybody, their vulnerability has been exposed. We're scared. We're thinking about the end of life.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people are really in a lot of pain. And just being aware of that, and doing what you can to help out. And it can be very simple right now. It can be just checking up on somebody. How are you doing? How are you feeling today? How are you coping with this? Simple things.
Yeah.
And it could be, face to face is better, because then you're triggering the mirror neurons as we're talking to each other. It's a more meaningful conversation when you see somebody face to face. So if you might, be in the habit of calling people, well, take the extra couple minutes and FaceTime them and look them in the eye, particularly people who have been, quarantining alone. It's quite lonely. And it's very important to look somebody in the eye, to smile at them, to let them know you care.
Yeah.
I think compassion is so important, and to recognize there's people that are struggling because of loneliness. There's people that are struggling financially. There's people who, have had a lot of health concerns during this, and just trying to be as good to as many people as you can, but not wearing yourself out, because one of the problems of the pandemic is everyone's suffering. So normally life's not like that. Normally, one friend has got a divorce and another one might have lost a parent, but the rest of us are out having a great time, and we could drop something off for them to eat or whatever. But now we're all like trapped at home and stressed out and not in a good mood. So you can't necessarily take care of everybody you want to take care of whenever everyone's suffering.
Yeah.
So really prioritizing self first, right? Because you could die from COVID and you want to be strong and not experience that in your own life. Then the people closest to you. So who is it that you would be normally seeing that you haven't been able to see in this quarantine? Can you reach out to them with a text, with a call, with a FaceTime, with a Zoom? Laughter is really important, and laughter helps people bond. So even if it's something you found on the internet that's funny, making sure that you send that to somebody. I woke up today, one of my friends sent me pictures of myself and my daughter when she was like 6. I'm telling you, it just made me feel so happy.
Yeah.
A little thing like that can just make somebody's day. Like, let somebody know you're thinking about them. Show them fun times that you used to have in the past. Very simple.
Yeah.
If you want to step up from that, food is hard, right? People are scared to go to the market. They're not out at restaurants. So feeding yourself 3 times a week is 3 times a day is very difficult for some people. So if you have a skill set around food, help people out. Could be something simple like sending a recipe to somebody, or getting together on FaceTime and cooking at the same time as them. Or I know my aunt, who's 86, every time her neighbor goes to the market, he picks her up something, just something, one small thing, and he leaves it at her door.
Yeah.
And it helps because we're not going to the market as much as we want. We don't have our same access to resources. So if you can help out in that way. And then we know a lot of people are financially strapped right now. So if there's anything that you can give financially, over tipping, like we said before, hiring somebody to do something for you, go ahead and do it. Now's not the time that we have to necessarily save. Now we're in a crisis. Be a little bit freer, share money with people who are having a difficult time, send somebody Uber Eats. One of my friends organized a wedding, and she sent everybody like a little box of things that was so cute, because we couldn't go to her wedding, and it was just so heartwarming. Any of these small acts are really nice. And then for people who want more complex kindness, volunteering, and that can be done online. It's not the same as doing it in person, but if you're missing that experience of volunteering, just Google online ways to volunteer in my community online, and you'll find lots of things because so many people are in need. But again, you have to take care of yourself first and don't endanger your own health to volunteer at this moment. Your first priority as an adult is to take care of your health.
Yeah.
That's why I'm a fan right now of volunteering online if you can find a way to do that.
And Dr. Eva, I think what I hear in everything that you've given here, and you've given lots of great ideas for people. I hope people are jotting down some notes right now as we're talking. You know, what I hear and what sparks in me comes back to the basics, and it comes back to the 5 love languages by Dr. Gary Chapman. You know, the 5 love languages are, gifts, physical touch, quality time, words of affirmation, or acts of service. And, these are 5 different ways that you can show your love and appreciation to other people. And, you've just given us examples for all 5 of those, really. And, I think it is true of like remembering that you are not isolated while we are like disconnected from people and we are kind of working from home more. You don't have to be disconnected in this isolation. And I think that's what the critical point is there. I'll give you an example real quick. My daughter bakes a lot. And if I were to eat all the things that Zoe bakes, I would probably be about 400 pounds. So for me, it is a good thing to get cookies and cupcakes and all the things out of our house and to other people. And so we've just gotten to a regular habit of dropping these little parcels of yumminess to our neighbors. They're a retired couple across the street or, another senior citizen couple down 2 streets down, and they love to receive it. And, we can do it safely and still be 10 feet apart with masks on talking. And as you said earlier, it's an opportunity for connection. So I think that the lesson in that I've certainly learned is when you work from a fear state, you work in a scarcity mindset. You want to hold on to all the things. And you think, oh, all the cookies, all the cupcakes, they're all mine. All the money, whatever, it's all mine. I got to hang on to it. Fear, 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 right? But when you move into an abundance mindset where you go, there will be plenty of cookies in my world, and you share those with your neighbors, cookies as a metaphor, really, your life is so much more rich, right?
So the way I like to think of that, because of that MD behind my name, is through biology. Yeah. And we have 2 sides of our nervous system. One is that fear-based side, which you talked about earlier, which is the sympathetic fight or flight. And when we're anxious, distressed, that's what's triggered. And those responses are very vital. They save our lives, but they don't really feel that good. When we can activate the other side of our nervous system, that's the parasympathetic nervous system. So para means around. So around the sympathetic nervous system. That's the calm part of the nervous system. And that is nicknamed the tend and befriend or rest and digest. So when you activate the calm part of your nervous system, that's where you're calling that abundance, where you're feeling calm, where you want to eat with your friends, where you want to rest, where you feel safe and secure. The reason I brought it back to biology is because you can shift the way you're feeling. So when I get off this with you, I could put on the news and wow, my stomach is going to hurt. My anxiety is going to go up into my chest. I'm going to be so fearful. And then I'm going to be like, oh my God, what do I have to do? Or I could say, that was a lot of fun with Mary. I think I'm going to rest right now. And I could lie down. I could put on some soft music. I could just like bask in how much fun it was to be with you and what a treat and what an exciting time that we're in with all this change. And we did a podcast reaching out all around the country. So I have all around the world, I have total control of how I'm going to feel when I leave you. Yeah. So one way to think of it is fear versus abundance. Another way to think is my system determines how I feel. Not always, right? If I go out in the street and cars coming at me, they've got the power. But if I'm home alone, not lonely, but alone, then I have the power to choose. Am I going to take those activities that are going to make me feel that way? Or am I going to choose activities that make me feel a different way? And you could label that as simple as kindness. Am I going to get myself a cup of tea? Am I going to put my feet up? Am I going to take a warm shower or a bath? Am I going to hug a pet? All those can go under the label of kindness, which is why, having practiced for 30 years, I really did distill it down to one word, because so many of our problems could be solved if we just decided to be kinder.
Yeah.
Whether it's somebody saying they don't want to wear a mask, whether it's to myself when I get done with this podcast with you, whether it's, going to sleep at night versus checking my cell phone, it covers a world of behavior. So I know you're about simplification. So my suggestion is take a little Post-it note, put BEKINDR on it, put up on your mirror, put up on your refrigerator, and make it a habit, because the news doesn't want you to think about it. The news wants you to go back on the fear state so that you can watch them again.
Right.
But take control of your life. Think about how important you are. Think about the people that you love, and then think about the world as a whole and how can you be kinder to all of those participants.
Dr. Eva, you're such a delight. So thank you for sharing all these wonderful bits of wisdom. And again, if you are curious about her book, it's called Be Kinder, all one word, no E at the end. And you can find that online at bekinder.com. You can find it in your bookshops locally as well as online if you want to read it. Because I feel like that's the beauty of this book in particular, is 64 stories, personal stories from people all over the world. And when you read these stories, there is inspiration. You find the common thread that's inside you as well as all around. And that's where you learn and cultivate that empathy and compassion we were talking about. So I have a few questions as we wrap up. And again, thank you so much for your time today. Well, these are questions I love to ask everybody. So first question is this: what's one book or blog that you're reading these days that's either inspiring you or poking holes and challenging your belief system?
Well, maybe it's both.
Good. Those are the best books.
So this is The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. And the beginning of the pandemic, I lost two family members, March 14th and March 18th. And then I lost my father June 10th. So it's been a particularly challenging time. So I've needed to sort of dig deeper and to think more about, what's going on here? Why are we here? What are we doing? How do we make the most of it? And how is it the most meaningful? Yeah. So I turned to spirituality and to reading more about spirituality. And I would do that every night instead of, getting my sympathetic nervous system aroused, just something calming and mind expanding. Yeah. And this has been my favorite of the books. I just think it's lovely. So I've read it twice in the pandemic, and I'm just trying to, get away from the hard science, the hard facts, and to think about maybe there's more here than meets the eye. And, what really are we here for? I'm going to turn 60 this year. So it's, that last third, and to think about, what's left when you're gone and how do you make a difference? Yes. You mentioned the Bold Beauty Project, and I would urge your listeners, if they have a moment, to check us out at boldbeautyproject.com. That's been my passion project, my kindness project, but it's been hard to do in the pandemic. So not having that outlet, I've been looking for something else. So the spirituality has been helping.
Brilliant. Well, we'll put a link in the show notes for that book. It's an excellent recommendation. I have read that myself as well. So I am curious, in your network, what comes to mind? Someone personally, you just feel is up to brilliant things right now. We could shine a spotlight on them, and who knows, maybe one day we'll have them on the podcast.
Well, I think Wendy Walsh would be my first pick. She is an absolutely brilliant friend, and I've gotten to know her better through this pandemic. And in fact, she started a book club that I'm a member of. So that's getting me way out of my comfort zone, because we're reading fiction, which I never do. And so when we're meeting via Zoom with a great group of women who are around the country, Dr. Wendy Walsh has a podcast called Mating Matters, and she can also be heard heard on iHeartRadio every Sunday. She's based in the Los Angeles area. But she's a woman I really admire because she is a single mom raising her two daughters, one of whom has special needs. She's a beautiful woman, and she is so bright. I jokingly call her my encyclopedia friend because no matter what topic you're on, she's like, woo, and all this stuff spilled out. And in terms of her legacy, she's been really impactful in the Me Too movement. So she's somebody that I really admire, and I know that she would come on your show because you're doing great work, Mary, and you're impacting a lot of people around the world, and that's so vitally important. We have an opportunity now to connect with people through technology and at a distance, and Wendy is just a genius at it. So I think you'll like her a lot.
She sounds like a delight. Absolute delight. Yes, 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 please. We will link her in the show notes for people so you guys can check her work out as well.
Great.
So I believe gratitude and simplicity go hand in hand. Tell me, what are you grateful for today?
Well, I'm grateful to be alive.
Yeah.
We have to really start there. My daughter's moving today, so I'm really grateful for that because it's a really big day. I'm really grateful to see you and to be with you and to have a voice, because it's been hard to be home for a year.
Yes.
And believe it or not, my yoga instructor is coming at 4:30, and we're going to tape a yoga video, and I'm his student.
Brilliant.
So I'm really grateful for that. So I don't think this Thursday could get any better.
Good. Oh, I'm so grateful for you too, Dr. Eva. So again, you can find her social media links through our show notes at thesimplifierspodcast.com, so you can get connected with Dr. Eva and her team and what she's doing with the Bold Beauty Project. Again, that's boldbeautyproject.com if you want to find that online.
And we're going to be part of the Runway of Dreams. I don't know what day your show's going up, but the Runway of Dreams is going to be March 9th and the virtual event March 11th. And our Bold Beauty Project, we're going to be launching a new virtual event, I think at the end of March.
Brilliant. Yes, so go check that out. That's great. Yeah. That's good. So my final question for you today, Dr. Eva, is this. And again, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. Someone somewhere is listening to you and I right now, and she is feeling very disconnected. She's feeling incredibly isolated and could really use a bit of kindness right now. What's one thing you could whisper into her ear right now just to encourage her in this moment?
I think everybody needs to know how worthy they are and how valuable they are. And so if there is a woman who's out there listening, who's feeling lonely and isolated, I think she needs to know that she's important and that she needs to feel valued, and she needs to start by valuing herself. And so if she can get up and go for a walk and see the sky and see that, there is hope, that she could do that. And if she feels like she's past the point where she can do that, then she needs to reach out to somebody. If she has a family member, a friend, that she needs to reach out, and that people are lonely, but we're not alone, and we need to fight that feeling of loneliness. And the way to fight that is through connection. And if you don't have somebody you can call the mental health hotline in your area. Or if you've gone to the point where you're thinking life is not worth it, then you call the suicide prevention hotline. But nobody should be suffering alone just because we're in a pandemic. Use your resources, reach out, and get help, because there is help for everybody. As you said at the beginning, it'll be 30 years of me practicing in July, and people are depressed, and this is a time when there's a lot of that, but there is help. And medications help, therapy helps, feeling connected helps, having a sense of purpose helps, eating well helps. There's many, many paths to recovery. So if you're in that spot where things feel hopeless, it's not hopeless. You just don't see it right now. But there are ways to get better. So let people guide you. Let them help you. When you feel that way, you can't see your way out. So reach out to somebody who knows the way out and let them show you the way.
Big love to you, Dr. Eva. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Mary. It's been a pleasure. Wishing you all the best, and so proud of what you're doing. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
Stay well.